You've neglected getting to know your keyboard shortcuts. Don't make the mistake of not spending some time getting to know your tools. Hey, this is Lisa. Welcome. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you can come back for more videos on productivity and tech. So today I'm going to share with you a few ways that you as a beginner can get more familiar with specifically Visual Studio Code and be able to code a lot faster as you're learning. Okay, so we're over on my computer now and I have Visual Studio Code open, and I have just a basic HTML5 scaffold out in this file, just a basic HTML file, so we can demonstrate a few of these shortcuts. I want to start out with a few application type shortcuts that will generally apply to a lot of the other things you're going to be using. In a browser, sometimes these work as well, and other applications and software on your computer. So we can look at these. If we go up here to the file menus, you can see on the side some of these shortcuts. So if you've ever wondered how you can use one of these shortcuts, you can go in here and see. If I want to create a new file, I push Control+N, and this is on Windows. For Mac, obviously, it might be different. So you can come in here and just start to familiarize yourself with some of these. So I want to go over just a few of the basics. I see a lot of my students neglecting some of these basics, so I want to stress, take your time getting in the habit of doing these rather than coming into the menu and manually selecting them every time. Practice. Force yourself to try to think, okay, what was the shortcut for that, before you try to go to the menu and look it up, so that you can not have to go back and forth between your mouse and the menu all the time while you're coding and typing. If you want to be a lot faster, you get these keyboard shortcuts down, you can do it without thinking. We're going to go ahead and just start by putting an H1 at the top here. This is our title. Okay, and let's go ahead and we'll have a section underneath. And this section will have an H2. This is a subtitle for this section. And then under that, we'll have a div, and we'll have a paragraph in there, and I'm just going to throw in some lorem ipsum. So let's say we want to keep going and add a few more paragraphs, and instead of having to keep typing these same tags over and over, we decide we want to just copy and paste. So the keyboard shortcut for copy, Control-C on a PC, and that copies it. We move to the place where we want to now paste, and we use Control-V. And now paste. We can paste in as many paragraphs as we want, go in and add whatever text we want here. What if we decide we want to actually move one of these paragraphs? We can select the paragraph that we want to move, and we can use our Control-X, which will cut that content out. We can go to our new location where we want that to be, and now we use our paste command, Control-V. Okay. If we want to now undo, Control-Z. If we are like, oh wait, I really did want that, Control-Y will bring it back, redo. And you can push those keys multiple times to iterate over however many steps backwards you need to go or forwards. Okay, so I know those are very basic, but I see them neglected a lot. So if you're not in the habit of using those shortcuts, practice, force yourself to remember them without going to the menu. I've created a free downloadable practice project for you, which will be linked in the description. So there's other ways that we can also move around and select our text to make things faster. So let's say instead of copying and pasting, we can select one of these paragraphs and we can hold Alt-Shift, and we can either use the up key or the down key to duplicate our selection below or above. So if we want to duplicate this above, push up and it will create the same content above where our selection was. Can do the same thing down. It'll create another paragraph below our selection. If we want to now move some of this text, we talked about just cutting and pasting. One other way you can do is just select it and drag it to the new location. That can be really helpful if you're, for instance, just moving a piece of text into a different paragraph here. So let's just say that needs to be moved over here. Great. Now it's in that paragraph. So you can follow your cursor to the new location. You can also move your selection by holding the Alt key and pushing up or down. So let's say we decide this paragraph needs to go actually above this div. Push your up key while holding Alt, and it will move it up above the previous element. You can again move it back down inside the div below that paragraph, so you can kind of reorganize and move things around in here. So that is a bit of moving and selection. Let's talk about find and replace. So once you get a lot of code in here, you're gonna start to want to look for stuff without having to scroll through and find it. You can use Control F to bring up a search bar. Now notice it put my selection right in there. So let's say we want to look for a specific key term here. We can select it first and then push Control F, and it will populate right there for us. Now let's say we want to replace that. Instead of Control F, we can use Control H, and we can say that we would like to replace all the lorems with ipsums. Okay, now we can replace them individually one by one, or we can replace them all at once. And you can use the arrows to navigate to the next one in case you want to skip an instance. You can make sure the entire case matches if you would like, a whole word. You can use a regular expression, so this can be very powerful. So that's find and replace. You can also do a find in a selection, and it will look just in the part that's selected. You can also do a find in your files. So if you have a specific folder open, maybe you want to look in your entire project folder for something, Control-Shift-F will allow you to do that. So there's quite a few options here. When you do Control-Shift-F, you will be able to type in there, and you can also specify which files, folders to include in here. You can also do a replace in here. Now let's do something a little tricky with the cursor. We now want to edit all of these paragraphs at the same time. We can hold down the Alt key and click in all the places that we want to edit at the same time. We can start typing, and it will fill out every single one of those cursor locations with the content that we type. Fabulous. Multiple cursors can be very helpful. You can scroll through and find the different locations and edit them all at once. Now let's go back to one basic function here. At this point, I think we should probably save our progress here. Now, there's an option in here, Autosave, which you can turn on if you'd like. Sometimes it gets annoying depending on if you're running a project that is going to be rebuilding every time it saves. You might want to not be constantly rebuilding your project, so you can turn that off. That's in your file menu. Look for that Autosave option. If it's on, it will have the check. If not, when you now edit things, you will see a little circle up here that tells you that this has not been saved. And you can use your shortcut Control S to save. Let's do another selection shortcut. So let's say we want to select all the opening paragraph tags. Start by selecting the paragraph tag and hold Control and then hit D, and it will select the next match of your selection. Whatever you had selected, it will look for the next instance of that. And if you continue to hold down Control, keep pushing D on top of that, it will just keep going to the next one. So you're holding Control and you're pushing D every time you want to look for another one. Very useful. When you do have multiple locations selected, either by doing it this way or with multiple cursors using Alt, you can always push your Escape key to take you back to the original cursor location and get back to just one cursor. Or you can, of course, just click to wherever you want and it will go back to the single cursor. Now let's get rid of a few of these paragraphs here. And in the middle, I'm gonna add an H3 here. This is my H3. We're going really great content here today. Let's talk a little bit about comments. Often when I'm working with my students, they say, oh, I don't remember the right comment syntax for whatever kind of file they're working in. Well, there's a nifty little shortcut you can use, Control /, which is on your question mark by your shift on the left side, and that will comment out whatever you have selected. It will sense the context that's around it, the type of file that you're in, and it will go ahead and use the proper syntax for whatever you need there. You can select one line or a whole bunch of lines. That should work just as well. You can also use, if you want to specifically do a block comment, you can do Shift-Alt-A. So there might be some cases where that would be a little bit different. Okay, so a block comment there. I went ahead and Control-Z, undid 3 times to get rid of those changes with the comments there. If at any time you're curious about a specific keyboard shortcut, you can look them up. We're going to go into our File menu, Preferences, and look for the keyboard shortcuts. You can use Control-K, Control-S as well for this. You can search in here for any of the shortcuts. Type in the box and it will help you find if there's a key binding set for something. If not, then you can go ahead and add one of your own, or you're welcome to change and edit the ones that already exist as well. This is another shortcut that I love to get my students in the habit of using, is Control-A. So if for some reason you're trying to select your entire file, Control-A will select all of it at once instead of trying to manually do that. Once you get to a big file, that is very handy. Alright, so this has been just a really basic tips and tricks for coding, text editing in Visual Studio. A lot of these things, again, apply to other applications and browsers as well. I really encourage you to spend time getting to know your tools, your keyboard shortcuts. It will save you so much time and hassle with debugging, things ending up in the wrong place, and you'll just make a lot less mistakes. Next, I would love to take a look at the Emmet extension and how we can scaffold out some basic pieces of code just by typing HTML and choosing this HTML5 here. Voila. So next, we're going to talk more about those Emmet abbreviations and how you can code faster using those. If you have any other suggestions and want to see anything specific, please let me know. Let me know in the comments if you've neglected getting to know your keyboard shortcuts. Which of these tips has been your favorite? If you got some value out of this, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can come back for more productivity and coding related videos in tech. And I'll see you in the next video.